All right, welcome to the December 5th regular meeting of the Ann Arbor Planning Commission. For detailed information on meeting procedures, please review the full printed meeting agenda provided. Mux Kelly, will you please call the roll?
Chair Lee.
I'm here.
Vice Chair Abrams. Here. Secretary Weish.
Here.
Commissioner Mills.
Here.
Councilmember Dish.
Here.
Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Here.
Commissioner Sauvé.
Here.
Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Weatherby.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on to approval of the agenda, may I have a motion? Moved by Commissioner Weich and seconded by Councilmember Dish. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 14th, 2023? Moved by Commissioner, Abrams. Yeah, sorry, long day. Seconded by Commissioner Sauvé. Is there any discussion of the minutes? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Next up are reports of the Planning Commission and written communication. Councilmember Dish, do you have any report?
I do, but for some reason I can't get anything that I want open. So I'll go from,
Let's turn on my mic. Okay. I'll go from memory. I can't get my notes from last night open, but we were busy last night. Mm-hmm. We approved the Lockwood PUD tweak. We approved the rezoning and the site plan for Briarwood. We were very happy to approve the abolition of premiums for Evermore. And we approved the TC1 setbacks. And that is all I can remember. Did I forget Briarwood?
No,
I said Briarwood.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you. That's a handful. Mux Kelly, do you have report?
I do. I just want to review briefly the holiday meeting schedule with the commission. There will be no working session on December 12th. You have another regular session on 12/19. It has 2 agenda items. There's no ordinance revisions committee this month. And in January, you will have a working session on January 9th, if you approve so in your calendar this evening, and a regular session on January 16th. We try to keep the early meetings from the beginning of January out of your calendar to reduce conflicts, and we'll talk about that later this evening. Steering committee meetings for the comprehensive plan are in the process of being scheduled by Manager Leonard for 2024. There's also, related to the comp plan, a community-wide survey asking about goals, community goals for the plan, and validating some assumptions that is in development for December or January. So please look for that.
Thank you. Do other commissioners have anything to report? Commissioner Sauvé.
Not within any committee, but I have submitted my resignation that should be ending at the end of this calendar year. So I've been working to talk to community members to help make recommendations to council, but otherwise it'll be in their hands to find a replacement. Thank you.
Commissioner Abrams.
Thank you for your service, Commissioner Sauvé. We're sad to see you go. I just wanted to report that the Ordinance Revisions Committee met on November 28th, and we discussed various things around zoning minimalism / unzoning / pink zoning, and just a kind of exploratory conversation. Nothing was decided. It was more of a exploration of ideas, just letting you all know.
Thank you. Any other committee liaisons or I will also take the time to thank Commissioner Sauvé for her service. All right, written communications are included in today's packet. I'm going to move on to public comment. This is an opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes about an issue that is not listed on the public hearing on this agenda. We'll first call on individuals present to address the commission, and then remote participants. To speak during this public hearing remotely, please press *9 if listening by phone, or use the raise hand feature if viewing through the web link. For phone access, please call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977 407-6634-1226. City staff will select callers who've raised their hand using the last 3 digits of their phone number or by name if available. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak, and when speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any background sounds so that we can hear you clearly. For either method of participation, please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Is there anyone present that would like to address the commission at this time?
My name is Claudius Vincenz. I tried to talk to you last time over the phone, but I felt like my comments felt a bit flat with that medium, so I walked down here to see you in person. I live on 545 South Fifth Avenue, so it's very close. It's also very close to a PUD that will soon hit your docket called 228 Packet PUD.
So this would be public comment to speak on something that's not on the agenda? Oh, psych, never mind, I apologize. And we will allow about 20 more seconds. Thank
you'll
you.
reset the timer therefore?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
you're good. Thank you. Apologies.
Please reset the timer.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So during this last time I talked to you, I did listen on to your comments when you were talking about pink zoning. So where you saw pink and opportunities, I saw red. I saw deep red, as in danger. Streamlining approval processes can quickly degrade the whole process into ignoring zoning laws and other statutes that regulate development. So no pink zoning, please. Adhere to the code, as you well know, it's called the UDC. And while the UDC is not perfect, it has many weaknesses, like PUDs. And but even PUDs, if adhered to their wording, are workable. I actually wanted to quote the whole PUD in the UDC. It's not very long. It's only about a paragraph long, and but still, it will kill too much time. So I'll only quote you the last sentence. This zoning district shall not be allowed where it is sought primarily to avoid imposition of standards and requirements of other zoning classifications or other city regulations, rather than to achieve the status purposes above. And this is exactly what this 228 PUD does. They try to avoid imposition of standards. I don't have the time to give you a blow-by-blow of the detailed arguments, but they are in letters that me and my neighbors have written to you and are in your docket. But I implore you, implore that you use your professional expertise to peel away the fig leaves the developers use to hide the true harm this project will cause to Ann Arbor and reject it as it has no merit. No affordable housing will be built. It proposes the minimum of energy efficiency features, severely hampering the 820 goals. It impedes public transportation instead of benefiting it. And lastly, it replaces one of the few topological features of Ann Arbor, a nice hill with a 12-story steel glass facade. You need to send this project to the design table and send it back to square one so that it becomes compatible with R4C, or so that it truly lives up to the intent of a PUD. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present? Seeing none, is there anybody remotely?
Phone number ending in 534, you have permission to address the commission.
Good evening. This is Tom Stolberg calling from 1202 Traver Street in Lowertown. I'd like to talk about flexible development options, which is a broad category that includes PUDs. And that last item that the previous speaker said about PUDs is one of the reasons why the 415 West Washington approval was illegal, because it broke that specific portion of the UDC. I've gone into that detail before. I can go into it for detail again. But flexible development options also included premiums and other, the 30% option that we have on the books. Last night at City Council, the premiums for downtown were eliminated. Understandable. Ken Garber spoke about something that I'd like to follow up on, and that had to do with that 30% height bump that can be traded for affordable housing or for sustainability, specific affordable housing and sustainability measurements. It needs a good look at now that that does apply where we've changed the premium rules, and to understand that I think we can do better with the sustainability portion of that option in our code. Again, the 30% height bump option, for those who aren't familiar with it and how that came about, there used to be something called planned projects in our UDC that was not in compliance with the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. The Lower Town lawsuit brought that to light. So planned project section was eliminated and replaced with something that allowed these 30% height bump for specific sustainability and affordability trade-offs. There was also something that was done at the same time that allowed the elimination of parking minimums in exchange for affordable housing and perhaps sustainability as well. That may just simply have been superseded by about a year later, removing parking minimums altogether. If so, you've got something on the books that perhaps, as you're looking at UDC changes, should come out. I actually really liked it that we put in there that you could eliminate parking minimums in exchange for those kind of community benefits. But that has been superseded, and I'm not sure if it's still on the books what the effect of that is. In general, PUDs and other flexible development options are tools. They can be used, they can be misused. It's all in what you do and in the honesty. Again, 415 West Washington, a PUD that was illegal because it tried to get around the law. Other PUDs are just fine. I don't know what you're going to do with the PUD called Five Corners. That's an application that you've nullified the application by an illegal rezoning at Southtown to C1AR as opposed to PUD, and put yourself in a bind there. Good luck when that comes to the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers remotely?
There are no other speakers.
Thank you. With that, I will close public comment. We are moving on to public hearings scheduled for the next business meeting. Staff.
A public hearing on the following items will be held by the Ann Arbor City Planning Commission on Tuesday, December 19th at 7 p.m. The first, 333 East William Street, site plan approval, zoned D1 Downtown Core District, a proposal to demolish the existing credit union building and construct a 16-story residential complex with approximately 700 beds, totaling approximately 230,000 square feet. 4 tandem parking spaces are proposed mid-building facing west. The ground floor of the residential building includes the leasing amenity room, trash room, utility room, elevator and lobby space, a maintenance room, and townhouse units. A pool and amenity terrace are proposed on the 14th floor. I'll preface the next public hearing notice that this is being re-noticed due to a minor but unfortunate error that previously listed for tonight's agenda that we would be reviewing section 5.28.8. However, we are reviewing section 5.29.8. I'll continue to read the notice and happy to answer any questions about that when this agenda item comes up. Amendments to Chapter 55 Unified Development Code related to transportation impact analyses, requirements, and review criteria. Section 5.29.8 required plan information. Paragraph E, Transportation Impact Analysis, is proposed to be amended by updating the reference from the 2010 Institute of Transportation Engineers Transportation Impact Analysis for site development to the 2023 Institute of Transportation Engineers Multimodal Transportation Impact Analysis for site development, eliminating listing individual components of the analysis to avoid inconsistency and redundancy, and providing separate requirements for area plans. Section 5.29.6, Site Plans, Paragraph E, Criteria for Review of a Traffic Impact Analysis, is proposed to be amended by updating references from traffic and/or parking impact analysis to multimodal transportation impact analysis and street or traffic improvements to transportation improvements.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda number 8, unfinished business. There are none, so we are moving right on to section 9A, regular business. This is the 1001 Cornwell Place street vacation, a proposal to vacate Cornwell Place, a one-block street extending east from North Ingalls Street. All properties abutting Cornwell Place are owned by the applicant, the University of Michigan, the Regents of the University of Michigan. The staff recommendation is approval. We will move on to petitioner presentation. Does the petitioner have a presentation?
Good evening. My name is Mike Rain. I'm with the Director of Community Relations and the Office of Government Relations at the university. I have really no presentation, but if there's any questions that you have.
Perfect. Thank you. Staff presentation, I have Jill Thatcher.
That's correct. I have a unfortunate Zoom error right now that's preventing Ms. Thatcher from joining as a panelist. However, I can bring her in via audio if that's acceptable to the commission.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Planner Thatcher, can you please speak, see if we can hear you?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Good. Hello. So the Cornwell Street vacation is an application from the University of Michigan to vacate this dead-end street. It's only a block long. It runs off of North Ingalls Street, and the university owns all of the property surrounding it. It was originally platted back in 1848, but there are no remaining houses on the block. And in order to vacate the street, council passes a resolution. If the city vacates the street, all of the property goes to the university because they are the property owners on both sides of the public right-of-way. There are utilities in the street, sanitary water and storm water mains. Those would all be transferred to the University of Michigan because they only service U of M properties. So the staff is recommending that the street vacation be approved. Before this application can go to City Council, there are quite a few things that need to be worked out between the city and the university that are requirements of city engineering. They are all addressing those public utilities. So if this is approved, if this is recommended for approval by the City Planning Commission, we'll work through those. Engineering will let planning know when they're good to go with those requirements that are listed in the staff report, and then we'll schedule this for public hearing at City Council. So staff does recommend approval. Surrounding parcels are in the same ownership. The vacation will have no impacts on vehicular or pedestrian access, and it's in the public interest and will facilitate future land uses of the underlying parcels. In the application, it was mentioned that this area might be used for a child care center owned by the university. That's it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. We will move on to public hearing. This is an opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes about this item. We'll first call on individuals present to address the commission, then remote participants. To speak during this public hearing remotely, please press *9 if listening by phone or use the raise hand feature if viewing through the web link. For phone access, please call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634-1226. City staff will select callers that have raised their hands using the last 3 digits of your phone number or by name if available. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak, and when speaking, please move to a quiet area and speak clearly. For either method of participation, please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Is there anyone present that would like to speak at this time? Seeing no one, is there anyone that would like to address the commission remotely?
There are no hands raised.
Give it a few more seconds. With that, I will close public hearing. Proposed motion, I will read that out loud. The Ann Arbor City Planning Commission hereby recommends that the mayor and city council approve the Cornwell Place street vacation. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Commissioner Abrams. Discussion of the motion. Councilmember Dish.
Well, the only thing I noticed is that we requested to get our street signs back. So I just wanted to highlight that and hope we got them.
Any other discussion? Okay, With that, I believe this is a pretty administrative vote here, and this is advancing to City Council for further discussion. So I will go to roll call with no further discussion.
Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Abrams?
Yes.
Commissioner Weiss?
Yes.
Commissioner Selby?
Yes.
Commissioner Hammerschmidt?
Yes.
Councilmember Dish?
Yes.
Commissioner Mills?
Yes.
Commissioner Weatherby?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. It is advancing to council. We will be moving on to agenda number 9B, regular business amendments to the Chapter 55 UDC. To introduce the petition, it is the transportation impact analysis requirement and review criteria of the Unified Development Code amendments. This is amending the Chapter 55 UDC sections 5.29.8 and 5.29.6 related to the transportation impact analysis requirements and review criteria. Amendments to that section 5.29.8 required plan information, paragraph E, transportation impact analysis, and section 5.29.6 site plans. Paragraph E, criteria for review of a traffic impacts analysis. The staff recommendation is postponement to the December 19th due to the error in the notice in the prior notice. And are we going to go on to presentation, or should we move the postponement?
I would recommend entertaining the bulk of discussion on, or all of discussion on the 1219 agenda. Another reason for that is that we will be joined by Planner DeLeo in person, as well as staff from the transportation group of city engineering. So we'll have more people on hand to answer discussions. If there is a burning question this evening, then we can do our best to answer, or perhaps to prepare for the 1219 agenda if there's something that you didn't see addressed in the staff report.
Mm-hmm. Got it. With that, then should we should still hold the public hearing?
That would be the best course of action, sure. I think, to hold the public hearing, and then with the renoticed public hearing, it would be held again.
Yes.
Be completely transparent and
perfect. So we're moving on to public hearing. This is an opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes about this item. We'll first call on individuals present, and then those that are remote participants. To speak during this public hearing remotely, please press *9 if listening by phone, or use the raise hand feature. For phone access, please call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634-1226. City staff will select callers that have raised their hands using the last 3 digits or by name if available. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. And when speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any television or background sounds so that we can hear you clearly. For either method of participation, please state your name and address at the beginning of the comments. Is there anyone present that would like to speak to the commission? Seeing no one, is there anyone that would like to address the commission remotely?
there are no hands raised.
As we will have another opportunity for public comment, I will read the proposed motion, which is that the Ann Arbor City Planning Commission proposes the postponement of this item to the December 19th, 2023 meeting, moved by Commissioner Hammerschmidt, seconded by Commissioner Mills. Discussion? Seeing none, without objection, this motion passes. No objection. The motion carries. Thank you. It is now postponed to the December 19th hearing. Thank you. Moving on to agenda number 10A. This is other business. This is the updated capital improvements prioritization plan and a staff presentation of the adjustment year CIP plan updates for the fiscal years of 24 through 29 and request for adoption. The recommendation is approval, and we have Kayla Coleman, Capital Projects Asset Manager, here for the staff presentation. Thank you.
This evening. I'm Kayla Coleman, Capital Projects Asset Manager, here for presentation of the updated FY 24 through 29 CIP for your consideration. We did discuss this at a working session on November 8th, I believe it was. So what you have now is the final result of the well, I won't say the final result, the draft plan that's presented for your consideration. It includes 473 projects, about $1.2 billion worth of work that would take place in that 6-year planning period, FY '24 through '29. And then I think it's about $1.7 billion that includes costs that may extend in years beyond FY '29. So costs that have been identified as associated with these projects, and some costs that may have been incurred in prior fiscal years as well. So if you're looking at the new dashboard, you see that the total project cost number that shows up there is that $1.7 billion. That is that 6-year planning period plus other associated costs with those projects. Because projects don't always span just 1 year. They may have started a year earlier and may go a year later. So primarily, I'm here tonight to answer any questions that you have. In your materials, we provided that overview of all of the projects as planned, the fiscal years where the spending would take place. And there's a couple of reference sheets, one that shows a listing of all new projects identified. This was something I mentioned in the working session in November. It's not typical to add a lot of new projects during an update year, which is what we're in this year. There's more than we would typically see, which was sort of a cleanup in the determination to pull some funding out and show it as its own project instead of another funding source embedded within a different existing project. So you see that new project listing, you see a project cleanup document, which shows any projects that have been completed since the last capital improvement planning period, and any projects that were eliminated. There are few of those, and maybe even fewer projects that are placed on hold at this time. But we still are using that on hold feature, looking for that when a project is not expected to take place within this 6-year planning period, to start embracing that on hold status so that it is not just tucked at the far end of the CIP and then continuously pushed out further and further and further. Those are a couple of the materials you received. You also received a follow-up memo from the November meeting, trying to go into a little more detail on some of the questions that were raised. So hopefully that was helpful, and I'm happy to take any further follow-up or clarification on those questions. And I think at this time, I'll turn it over to Chair Lee, and I'll answer any questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm going to read the proposed motion, which is that the City Planning Commission approves the updated fiscal year 2024 through 2029 capital improvements plan as a supporting document for the city's comprehensive plan, and recommends that City Council approve it as the basis for the fiscal year 2025 capital budget. Moved by Commissioner White and seconded by Commissioner Mills. Discussion. Does anybody want to kick us off? Questions, comments? Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Hi, thanks so much for this. It looks so complex, and thank you so much for all of your hard work on this. I just had one question from something that stuck out to me in the staff report under the highlights. Now I have to find it again. The new U of M housing that is adding, for example, the new high-level trunk line sewer capacity improvements project. Can you just clarify for me, is that something the city would pay for or the university would pay for if it's a university project?
Sure. Thank you. That would be cost sharing between the university and the city, but and the cost sharing agreement, I don't believe has yet been established for that particular project, but early discussions look like it would be primarily funded by the university,
okay,
with some participation by the city.
Is that typical for any big new housing development? Is there some sort of negotiation on if there needs to be new infrastructure?
I think so. I think that it's fairly typical. I mean, this is a major development that is adding a lot of new beds to an area that already had limited capacity. So I don't think it's typical. We wouldn't want to, I guess, set the expectation that with any new development, this level of sanitary infrastructure upgrade is going to be needed. But this had a lot to do with the part of town that it was in, the infrastructure, the condition of the infrastructure that was there, and just the magnitude of this project. But it is not I don't think it is uncommon that we would have this sort of discussion with any developer, even if it were not the university, if it were other private developers as well.
I'm glad to hear that the university's probably paying for most of it. And I'm excited about the improvements to the new park for the bicentennial, too.
Great.
So thank you so much for all your work on this.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dish.
So yes, I want to echo the thanks. I know this is really complicated. I'm noting in the, am I in the highlights? Yeah. In the highlights document, you mention that, or it is mentioned that staff will be looking for opportunities to do traffic calming when there's significant road work, street work being done. Is any of that listed, or has it not been determined yet? That's one question. And then second question, there are a lot of additional streets on this, and at least one of them, I know the Summit Street has been wanting, well, it wants sidewalks, but I think it also wants bike lanes. Is there anything happening? Would there be any of that additional traffic calming work done there, or multimodal work done there? Those are not the same thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Let me answer the question about the traffic calming where there's any major street work happening. What we have done at this point is reviewed all of the projects that are resurfacing type of work that would significantly disrupt the pavement. If it's resurfacing, reconstruction, rehabilitation, we wouldn't consider this on a capital preventative maintenance project where the work is not as disruptive. But on all of those more disruptive projects, it's been added to the scope that opportunities for traffic calming will be explored when the project is designed. But we have not done that analysis at this point to actually say which projects would have changes made or what those would look like. So it's a bit higher level. But then were you asking specifically about a Summit Street project? Okay, let me.
Sorry. Yeah, because it's one of the additional, in the highlights, it's one of the added projects is Daniel to Maine on Summit. But what I'm taking from your answer is that given that the projects that were already on the books are being evaluated and no decisions have been made, these projects which have just been added wouldn't be being evaluated yet.
Right.
Right.
That's correct. Yeah, I'm just pulling up that Summit Daniel to Maine to see what the scope says exactly. And it has a general bullet point that says evaluate opportunities for traffic calming elements to enhance comfort and safety for non-motorized users, incorporate where appropriate. So that's the general language that is being used at this time. And that's one that is scheduled in FY 28 and 29. So it's a bit further out. And I think staff will start probably with the nearer term projects to evaluate more specifically what can be incorporated.
Commissioner Mills.
Thanks. I think that the map, again, is a really great addition. And if people are watching, I'm curious if you can, I'm sure if like me, they go into their neighborhood and look at like where are there's a lot of our infrastructure that we don't see, right? Water and sewer, we don't necessarily know where that is or kind of the shape of it, but what a lot of people do see is the roads and whether they have sidewalks or traffic calming or are in bad condition. So specifically about that, can you talk us through like, if it seems like there is a place that is lacking something, how public goes about either contributing a project or specifically on either our sidewalk network or our road network, like what kind of periodic review the city does to I think there's something like the PACER scores, like that's what I'm thinking about, like to determine like actually how bad is this compared to, you know, at what point does it make it onto this?
Yes. Well, thank you for those questions, Commissioner Mills, and for how the general public could identify issues that they see in their neighborhood, something in their community that they want to bring to our attention, you can always use A2Fix-It as a way to report something that may not be, that's generally more like nearer term fixes through that, not longer term capital improvements, but it could at least get the request submitted and then it get funneled to the right staff person to be incorporated in a capital project. And my information is on the CIP webpage, so a2gov.org/CIP is where the city's capital improvements plan lives online. And my contact information is there, kcoleman@a2gov.org. And any member of the public, if they identify what they believe to be a capital improvement planning need, more of a longer term infrastructure improvement, they could funnel that my way. We do get those. We get them most often for road projects because that's what people see and can relate to a little more, but we have sometimes gotten those requests for water quality improvements as well, or water pressure. So there are definitely those funnel into creating new capital improvement projects, and it helps us understand the urgency sometimes of something that's already been identified. So that's encouraged. And then how do staff identify new capital improvement projects and do those evaluations? You're right that we do PASER ratings, so I'm not going to be able to pull the acronym definition out of my hat right now, but some sort of pavement evaluation system is the gist of it. And the roads are, do you know it? Are you about to tell? You look like you're about to say. So the roads are, the condition is rated every other year, and we completed those ratings this August of 2023. All of the roads' new ratings were gathered, and we use that in our asset management planning efforts to identify which roads need treatment, what type of treatments roads need, and how to approach our road system overall. So that's kind of a whole nother topic on on how you plan road improvements. It's not always worst first. You need a mix of fixes approach. That's the catch term. So that's why we do some capital preventative maintenance. It helps extend the life of assets at a much lower cost than what it would cost to fully reconstruct roads when they get to the point of total failure. So that's what we do for streets, and we do have other similar systems where we are evaluating condition of other assets, including our underground infrastructure, like our utility systems, our water, sanitary, and storm.
Yeah, Commissioner Mills.
This is a follow-up to that then. If the PACER scores came in this summer, if there were any big changes in condition, would that be in this, or would we expect it in the next year?
In the next one.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just too soon because we start capital improvement planning very beginning of September, and those came in late August, and the data's got to be integrated and processed, and it is not yet ready to be reflected in this plan, but it will be in the fall of 2024.
Great, thank you.
And the pavement surface evaluating and rating.
Oh,
So, no, thank you. Any other commissioners with questions? I have a question. As we continue to kind of look at whether, the types of land use and zoning designations that we might have, whether it is to take, something like R1A or something like that and try to create a little more density, or TC1, for example, our transportation investments need to somewhat mirror, again, the kinds of thoughts that we have regarding growth corridors. And so I know that there's a lot of weighting mechanisms that we go through to say, hey, this is where the funds are coming from, this is the likelihood that we're going to be able to get the matching grant, et cetera, and this is the need for it. Are there any types of weighting mechanisms for the types of policy, I suppose, changes that we're making at the legislative level that impacts the CIP? For example, roadway redesigns on TC1, because the public right-of-way can't be really influenced by the private sector. Mm-hmm. And so, making sure that we have transportation investments in those particular corridors to reflect the land use policies that we're having. Are there any kind of considerations in the CIP for those kinds of legislative designations?
I think generally yes, but specifically related to land use zoning, I don't think so. I think at a high level, I would agree that, or I would say that our policy document, we do try to reflect our policy guidance in our scoring criteria for capital improvement projects. And I can't think of a metric or scoring criteria that reflects land use zoning. We do, like, as we talk through identifying any new capital project, we talk about how it aligns with any existing comprehensive plans at the city. So those conversations would happen, but in the actual scoring of the project, it may not. So I think that's something we could look into a little more. Sure. We do plan to dive into our scoring criteria during this sort of in-between season before the fall of 2024, when we do a full CIP cycle. We talked last fall with you all about how we wanted to get our sustainability and equity metrics updated, and so that all we hope to tackle this January, February kind of winter timeframe, and looking also at alignment with land use planning could be part of that as well.
Food for thought. So,
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Weich.
Thank you. Thanks for the update, and thanks for the memo and responding to the bollards, the street lights, and the bike infrastructure. My questions are all about those. So the process would be, as I look at the document and understand our role here at the Planning Commission, is this is our document, right? Like, we are the owners. I don't know how so we are responsible for it, and then it goes to City Council, and then they adopt it into the budget.
Somewhat, if I can interject.
Absolutely.
This body approves the capital improvements plan, and City Council approves the budget. And this document is a basis for the budget. So City Council does not explicitly approve the capital improvements plan.
It stays here. Okay.
It stays here, but City Council approves the capital budget, which is inherently based on the capital improvements plan. So it's kind of a technicality, but I think
technicalities are important.
Yeah.
So with that, and I just want to focus for a moment on the second of your three responses, the one on the streetlights. So and thank you again for responding to our questions about this. So the crosswalk improvements, TRA2 2223, which is not on your fiscal year 24-29, but is on the dashboard. So, and $2.7 million has been allocated over 6 years with no allocation in year 2029. So, and when I dive into that section, into the dashboard, it's targeting very specific streets. It's not comprehensive within the city. So one question that presents to me is, there's the maintenance of existing crosswalks. There is the identification and repair of crosswalks when there is significant restructuring of a roadway, but there doesn't seem to be a catch or a place for the addition of crosswalks in places that are underserved. And I wonder how we at planning would bring that forward, and are we the right body to do that? Is that something we just note, send it to planning staff, and then they send it to the right department, that person takes receipt of it, and then it comes to you through that mechanism, or does it come from this table? So the question is something that might be missing that should be covered in the capital improvements plan. Where should it originate?
I can also offer some reflections on that while Kayla looks
Sure.
up
Well,
notes.
because I'm reading into, look, how about we move over to Hank, because I'm reading specifically that project that you called up to see.
Yeah. My understanding of the relationship of this body to the CIP is one of whether or not it reflects the spirit of the comprehensive plan. So does the CIP mesh with, and is it in accordance with the plans that are otherwise administered and used, every month at this table? In the weeds of this particular project seems like it's not adequate, or I think that the street needs an additional crosswalk, would be a very difficult thing to manage practically out of this body, and also as the fact that the city has a transportation commission and has expert staff that are looking at these, that level of, I think, in the weeds would not be appropriate. Ways that we could integrate more comments of that kind. For example, how would areas that are underserved by crosswalks, which may be a recommendation in this part of our planning canon, be involved in the CIP? Could be accomplished, for example, by holding more working sessions as we move into a non-adjustment year, but one with more substantial changes. Those are some of my reflections on that. I wonder what Kayla Coleman thinks.
Thank you, Planner Kelly. I think that very well articulated better the role of this organization and the types of changes that, or this commission, sorry, not organization, that would be appropriate to influence. I was looking specifically into your question about TRAT 2223 and reading the first bullet of the scope. It says improve existing crosswalks to current design standards and install new crosswalks with direction from the Vision Zero transportation plan. So I think sort of consistent with what Planner Kelly was talking about in this body's role to identify whether or not you believe the CIP is meshing with and is consistent with the comprehensive plans of the city. The Vision Zero transportation plan is our transportation policy, and this project is, this specific capital improvement project is intended to identify crosswalk improvements and new crosswalk installations consistent with what's identified in that plan. And there are specific locations proposed for the 24-29 fiscal years, FY 24 through 29. Further ones would be identified as we get closer to those years. There are dollars programmed through FY 29 in order to achieve that.
Yeah, and I was just using that because you referenced it, so it came from your response. I didn't pick that one arbitrarily. You put it in a parenthetical as an example, and so I just picked it up to say, this is one place where it's being funded. However, it doesn't seem like it's happening comprehensively. So let me restate what I think I heard, which is the Vision Zero transportation plan is the placeholder or the appropriate place where concerns around crosswalks, lighting would occur. And then from there, it comes down into the CIP through specific highlighted projects.
That's accurate.
And then connecting that with what Planner Kelly has shared with us, then our role would be, if we wanted any input into that, it would be to whoever the responsible parties are for the Vision Zero transportation plan, be that the Transportation Committee, a subcommittee of council, or council itself. And so we could, in theory, communicate with them through some means, either a working session, a memo, or some public comment. And that would be the appropriate place for this, any concerns that we would have about this infrastructure. And that by time it gets to the CIP, it has already worked through sort of that prioritization process. And our role as custodians of the CIP is just to move forward what has already been decided.
The correct place to address policy that would inform the CIP for crosswalks would be the Moving Together Toward Vision Zero plan. So if that plan, which was recently adopted, is lacking or needs to be updated, then we could have conversations about how to initiate amendments or updates to that, and to ensure that that filter is used to filter projects for subsequent capital improvement planning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. For our edifications, what are kind of the large timelines? I think you were starting to mention that you're going to get into it during the winter time, but as we're moving from the just adjustment period into the major revamp of the 2-year cycle, what does next year's large block look like?
Yeah, well, as you know, I came into this role about a year and a half ago, and we've been able to make some changes along the way. But I've also been making note of other changes I'd like to make with the process, including the scoring criteria, the intake form. So when you see the scope sheets that have the details about each project, just looking for some improvements that can be made to streamline how we are inputting the data for each of our capital improvement projects. So that is a lot of what I hope to tackle in the winter months, the January through March, let's say, is kind of like overall improvements to all of our internal resources for building the capital improvements plan. And then I will set meetings, typically those go out in February or March, to get it on staff calendars, that we meet with each of those asset groups. So we've got 14 asset groups, and in a full plan year, it includes 3 meetings with each asset group. So I've got a lot of scheduling to do, a lot of staff schedules to coordinate, and those meetings typically begin in September. What I did in my first year when I was building the capital improvement plan last year, I started with some meetings over the summer to get a heads up on what we expected to be coming as far as new projects. So talking with staff from each of those 14 asset groups, identifying any new projects coming along the way, because those take the longest. Updates to existing projects take some time, but inputting a whole new project, thinking through the scope of it, thinking how it would be funded, what's its budget estimate going to look like, all of that takes much more time. So probably over maybe even the spring and summer, start talking with staff about new projects that are coming, thinking about how we are estimating our project cost is something that we can always improve, looking at data from recent projects constructed to get better cost estimates is kind of like an ongoing improvement area. And then I may try to start those staff meetings a little earlier. Typically, as I said, they've started in September, but we may be able to get a head start to spread it out a little bit so it isn't as intense in the September, October, November timeframe. And then after I've gotten through the meetings with all the 14 asset groups, I pull together, so that table that you saw with each of the 6 fiscal years and the dollars, I'm pulling that together, talking with finance to look at overall budgets. So if we have $13 million worth of stormwater projects in one year, do our financial forecasts in our models predict that that's going to be achievable to be funded? So I'm spending some time with, that's an example, I guess, but spending some time with finance, seeing whether or not we expect to be able to fund the work as planned, making adjustments as needed, and then I come to you all. Last year, I brought a presentation, a work session presentation, kind of similar to what we did in November, but last year I did it in September, so quite a bit earlier. And it was, at that point, it's very high level. I don't have CIP highlights to share, but what I can do at that early stage is just talk about the CIP process, which can be helpful for any new commissioners or any members of the public following along. I would welcome any input from this group in terms of what you would like to see, when you would be most interested. Is it helpful for me to come a little later when I have more information to share for the work session, or would you like me to come earlier in case you have input to be incorporated into those staff meetings? So that's sort of open for input.
Yeah, no, I think that's helpful. And because I think kind of what I'm hearing from Commissioner Mills as well as Commissioner Weish is kind of like, how do we give input that is like readily, impactful? And also the question kind of how does the public really get their messaging across, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, this is what I'm seeing, and these are the kind of priorities. And so, and kind of what we heard was either A2 fix it and or, emailing you or reaching out to your, council members, et cetera. But is there a more, I guess, legible or dedicated line to give feedback? Mm-hmm. And is there a kind of normative time frame? And that's kind of where I was going with that. And for myself, kind of where my head was going was, could there be a working session where we bring, kind of a review of the way, because it seems like a tremendous amount of work. That's, 42 meetings you got to set, 14 divisions, 3 meetings each. And so we're certainly not discounting that. And I'm just trying to figure out what might be the best way to, provide actionable feedback as opposed to, I mean, anyone can give you a wish list, but obviously a lot of quantitative analysis goes into, creating this. So I hope I kind of encapsulated, the thoughts of going into this. How can the public get a little more involved? The map is a wonderful, wonderful tool to kind of start that, but I think clarity and more legibility in terms of the timing of things and the avenue by which feedback can be given might be helpful. I personally really always like the annual kind of reminders of the CIP presentation in September, and perhaps we can maybe think about pushing that back to potentially October so there's more information and a little more substance, and then coming in for adoption so that it's just a little fresher. But maybe possibly, I know we're going to talk about schedule next year, but also to possibly think about a working session in which we have this, kind of a review so that we can have a little more free-flowing conversation. So.
I think, if I can just respond, I think that what you raise is sort of particularly related to the general community, is the public engagement component of the capital improvement plan, which is something, given that my background before CIP was doing public engagement for the city for 12 years or so. So that is something I'm passionate about and I'm interested in. I think that the map was intended to hopefully it has served that purpose in going a long way to making the CIP more accessible rather than hundreds of pages of static PDF. It's searchable, it's interactive, you can zoom in, you can see these details, but it doesn't get all the way there in clarifying when you should provide feedback, how you can provide feedback. We don't have any sort of like intake form for the public to fill out. If you believe a capital improvement project is needed, submit ideas here or something like that. I think that we could look into that a little more, maybe explore what other communities are doing, see if we can learn from others as well and make improvements to that process. So I'd be happy to take that away as my sort of, in that January through March timeframe, I was talking about other improvements to process. That could be one as well.
Yeah, or even like a drop down at the map where you can kind of click it down and it shows you just kind of January through December. Here's some critical dates, right? And so to make it kind of interactive, but I'm sure some graphical user interface software engineers like, what is he talking about? That's not so easy. So perfect. Any other commissioners? Questions? Yes, Commissioner Weich.
So I was on a panel recently at the University of Michigan around accessibility, and it was sort of the CIP that was on my mind because that's the place that the city undertakes its initiatives to improve the built infrastructure. And the majority, both of the participants and the panelists, were unaware that that was the vector through which these changes occur. And I think there is something, this is part of why I keep asking these questions, because I'm just really trying to understand, like, are we just a rubber stamp of this process and it's here because it doesn't belong anywhere else, so it lands here? Or do we have some influence over the use of the land in a sense, because this is the built infrastructure that supports a lot of the initiatives, including what's happening in the comprehensive plan. I understand what Planner Kelly's cautions were, and I take those to heart, but something that is somewhere in between, not us sort of inserting ourselves into the process, because it is a very complex process, but trying to be a better vector around the use of the land as well as the built infrastructure to accomplish the goals that are set out in the comprehensive plan, which is a sort of a planned community that is accessible for all ages and all abilities. And there are so many entry points into that. And I wonder, maybe post-comprehensive plan, if we might not look at how we can be better facilitators of that conversation. I'm not suggesting anything right now because it feels a little bit too big to get my arms around, and especially because a lot of the capital improvement plans are informed by policy decisions, and those policy decisions are not frequently updated. And given our current set, many of them are 15, 16 years old. But we live in a very different environment than we did when those plans were adopted. So there's that disconnect. So maybe as a cautionary tale, I will be asking more questions like this every time you come to the table.
Sure. Thank you.
And yes, Commissioner Mills.
I really appreciated that, and it's gotten me thinking, right, about maybe incremental changes in parts of the community. It's sort of business as usual, but if there is dramatic change, like how are we prioritizing that? And it's multiple things together, right, to handle change, particularly if it's not evenly spread, but if it's in particular places, it requires investment in our infrastructure to allow for that. This is really a question for those people that are on the Comprehensive Plan Committee or Mix Kelly, which is how I would imagine in the community engagement, well, first of all, whether or not we're anticipating that the recommendations that come out of the comprehensive planning process will include updates that need to be made in the CIP, just like you referenced kind of the moving towards Vision Zero together. And I mean, I know A20 is not thing, but there was a table that said like, and this is the place where we need changes. So that's one. And also, I know that a lot of our comprehensive planning discussion, and certainly what we do here, is about development on private land. But I would imagine in the community engagement that happens along the way, not everybody understands that, and there's probably a whole lot, there may be some things to glean from the engagement that happens with the comprehensive planning process that can inform, like, what are some of the things that keep on coming up that maybe should be added somewhere to the CIP. And I don't know if either of those are happening, and I don't want to obviously move the scope, but I think it's just helpful to know for, like, is this a follow-up conversation, or is this actually going to happen along the way or not?
There are absolutely opportunities to talk about the explicitly, relationship about capital investments in the comprehensive planning process. And one of those conversations that I've been privy to is, will we, in the areas that may be recommended for increased density or absorbing more community growth, do we have the right public sewer infrastructure? And in general, from what I hear is that, our water infrastructure isn't the primary thing to investigate and look at, but do we have the sewer infrastructure to manage that potential density, if that were to be recommended in places that it would be recommended? That has follow-on implications for the capital improvement plan itself. So that is exactly the type of scenario that would be discussed in comprehensive planning conversations. And then that becomes a filter that is an input for our asset management and investment recommendations that go into the CIP. It becomes part of the inputs for the working groups that Kayla mentioned. So yes. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, so it may come up. I mean, it will come up, and particularly if they're, like, that will be considered in terms of geographic location, sorry.
Right, and there's relationships between the recommendations that are made for zoning and land use and what needs to be supported from the public sector side. So that, yes, I would imagine that would come up very naturally and also in more targeted ways.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Seeing none, I'm going to move this to a roll call vote. Mix Kelly.
Commissioner Lee.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I missed who was moved and seconded by.
Oh. That was a while ago.
I think it was Weich and Mills. Yes,
Okay.
that was a while.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee.
Yes.
Commissioner Abrams,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiss,
Yes.
Commissioner Sauvé,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammerschmidt,
Yes.
Councilmember Dish,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Mills,
Yes.
Commissioner Weatherby.
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wonder if anyone said no to the CIP recommendations. That's really kind of what it gets me thinking, but I might bring that up in commission proposed business. Moving on to agenda item number 10B, 2024 calendar adoption. Staff recommendation is approval. Ms. Kelly.
In your packet, there is a proposal for a 2024 calendar. We are able to propose this as soon as City Council approves their 2024 calendar for adoption, which just recently happened. And so I will note that a frequent question and sort of complaint is, hey, who moved my meeting? And why is it on a Wednesday? So Manager Leonard has done us all the favor and for all of our sanity to describe which meetings are being moved to Wednesdays or rescheduled, some to Thursdays, and why that's the case. You can see it's primarily due to elections, public holidays, and to accommodate our City Council, which would then move to Tuesdays on some occasions. Any questions on the proposed meeting calendar? Okay, there is a proposed motion that Chair Lee has.
Yes, this commission approves the adoption of the 2024 City Planning Commission meeting calendar, moved by Commissioner Weichen, seconded by Councilmember Dish. Discussion? Any dates pop up as problematic for folks? I'll be missing the February 13th, just heads up. But if none, I'll do a voice vote. Sorry. Councilmember Dish.
Actually, I may be wrong about this, but Monday, January 15th is a holiday. And is it the second? It's the third Tuesday. Okay. Because council is meeting the second and fourth Mondays. So,
and the first is a Monday.
And the first is a Monday. Good. So there will not be a conflict on that day. Okay, thank you.
You were thinking of the January 16th meeting, wondering if that would be...
I think I was confused. I was trying to juggle all these shifts that are being made, and so when I saw the 16th, I thought, I think that's council, but it's not council, because we're the second and fourth for January, because the first is a Monday, which messed us up, and so trying to do the first and the third was a mess. All right. Okay. So everything looks good to me so far, but...
We're happy to amend this if a conflict or issue reveals itself later on, but we did have multiple sets of eyes on this, so hopefully it's good.
Okay, any other thoughts? If not, without objection, this motion passes. We'll look around. Motion carries. We're going to move on to public comment. This is a second opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes about any issue that is not listed as a public hearing on this agenda. We'll first call on individuals present to address the commission, then remote participants. To speak during this public hearing remotely, please press *9 if listening by phone, or use the raise hand feature if viewing through the web link. For phone access, please call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634-1226. City staff will select callers that have raised their hands using the last 3 digits of the phone number or by name if available. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak, and when speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any background noises so that we can hear you clearly. For either method of communication participation, please state your name and address at the beginning of the comments. Do we have anybody present that would like to speak? Seeing no one, is there anyone that's remotely looking to participate?
There are no callers.
Thank you. I'm going to just give it 2-3 more seconds. I'm going to close public comment. We're going to move on to agenda number 12, commission proposed business. Is there any commission proposed business? I would just like to take a second to thank Commissioner Salve for her service. I've always listened to her counsel and her feedback as somebody who is a very strong professional in the world of architecture, design, and development. So the city will miss your services, and I'm personally grateful. And I have no doubt that you're going to continue to do great work in pushing the city forward. So thank you. Seeing no other commission proposed business, I am moving to agenda number 13, adjournment. Moved by Commissioner Weich, seconded by Commissioner Mills. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.